Hi viewers, how are you doing today? Today's story is about two young sisters. Deep inside an enchanted forest, two sisters followed the path to a magical flower that could save a dying king. But before the night ended, one sister would win a prince's heart, and the other would lose everything to her own greed. The story begins like this. Long ago, beyond the Crystal Mountains and beside an enchanted forest called Moonveil Woods, there lived two sisters in a humble cottage covered with wild roses. The elder sister was named Lyra. Lyra was known for her gentle heart. She helped wounded animals, shared food with the poor, and spoke kindly even to strangers. She pressed her palms into the soil, offering pieces of bread, her focus locked on the animals' recovery. Her beauty was soft and graceful, like spring sunlight after winter. The younger one was Selene, however, was beautiful in a colder way. She cared only for riches, jewels, and admiration. Selene stood before a polished silver tray, tilting her head left, then right. She practiced a smile, over and over, until the muscles in her face burned. She pretended sweetness before others. Jealousy burned deep inside her heart, especially whenever people praised Lyra. One early morning, Lyra heard a dull thud at the window frame. A bird hit at the window. She bolted toward the sound immediately, her hands already reaching out to steady the creature. Selene did not turn. She reached for a strand of hair, adjusted it, and returned to her reflection. One sister measured her worth by the breath of the living, the other by the stillness of her own image. The divide between them widened with every passing hour. While Lyra knelt in the mud to mend a broken wing, Selene stayed inside, turning her gaze away from the forest and back toward the silver tray. The morning silence shattered with the rhythmic beat of hooves on hard-packed earth. A rider burst into the village square, his mount lathered in sweat, kicking up a cloud of grit that settled over the market stalls. He pulled the reins hard, bringing the horse to a sliding halt before the village fountain. Villagers dropped their baskets and gathered in a tight, breathless circle. The messenger did not wait for the dust to clear. He unrolled a scroll, his voice cutting through the quiet like a blade. The king was dying. His breath grew shallower by the hour, and the kingdom stood on the precipice of a long, dark winter. Only the fabled silver blossom could reverse the tide of the sickness. The prince had issued a decree. He would lead the search into the heart of the woods, and he would not return without the cure. The messenger turned his horse, spurred it forward, and vanished as quickly as he had arrived. Lyra stood by the fountain, her hands clenching the rough fabric of her apron, her gaze turning toward the dark tree line. Beside her, Selene let out a sharp, sudden breath. When Selene heard the news, her eyes sparkled greedily. She whispered,
"A prince. If I marry him, I shall live in a palace."
So the next morning, Lyra entered tangled walls of Moonveil Woods, followed by Selene. Lyra stepped forward, her boots sinking deep into a thick carpet of pine needles that muffled every sound. The air here was cooler, heavy with the scent of damp moss and ancient, undisturbed earth. Above, the canopy knit itself together so tightly that the sky vanished, leaving only a dim, emerald twilight to guide their path. Selene followed a few paces behind, her eyes scanning the shadows that clung to the twisted roots of towering oaks. The further they walked, the forest seemed to breathe. Branches groaned without the presence of wind, and the path ahead curled in ways that defied the geometry of the outside world. Light did not behave normally here. It fractured into strange, shifting patterns that danced along the tree trunks. Lyra reached out to touch a leaf, and the plant shivered, pulling back from her contact. There was no sound of birds, no rustle of small animals, he only the low, rhythmic hum of something vast and hidden beneath the soil. The sisters moved deeper, the boundary between the known world and the ancient, wild heart of the woods dissolving with every step they took into the dark. A sudden, sharp cry cut through the forest silence, vibrating against the damp air. Lyra shifted her weight, moving instinctively toward the sound of a shallow, nearby stream. She pushed through a dense thicket and stopped. A white stag lay tangled in the roots of a massive fallen oak, its leg pinned beneath a heavy branch. The animal thrashed, its eyes wide with panic. Lyra did not hesitate. She dropped to her knees in the mud. Prince Adrian emerges from the shadows of a massive gnarled oak. He was watching Lyra helping stag free, wedging her shoulders under the thick, moss-covered wood. She heaved her muscles, straining against the weight. The bark was rough, tearing at her palms until they turned raw and red. She gritted her teeth, pushing until the wood groaned and shifted just enough. The stag lunged, pulling its trapped limb free from the debris. The stag stood slowly. Then something impossible happened. A young man dressed in a dark traveling cloak appeared beside her. It was Prince Adrian, but Lyra did not recognize him. The stranger said softly,
"You should leave it. You may get hurt."
Lyra shook her head and replied softly,
"If someone is suffering, we must help."
The prince watched her with quiet amazement. Most people he had met during his journey only spoke of rewards, riches, or royal favor. But this girl cared only for kindness. The stag stood slowly. Then something impossible happened. Silver light shimmered around the creature. Its form transformed into a radiant forest fairy crowned with glowing flowers. The fairy said warmly,
"You have shown compassion without seeking reward."
Prince Adrian bowed immediately. He said quietly,
"Lady Evlise?"
Lyra blinked in surprise and said politely,
"You know her?"
The prince smiled and replied,
"Because I am Prince Adrian."
Lyra's cheeks turned pink with embarrassment. Selene watched from the edge of the brush, her fingernails digging deep into her palms. She muttered bitterly.
That should have been me.
The fairy queen turned toward Lyra and the prince. She said,
"The silver blossom blooms tonight, but only a heart pure with kindness may touch it."
She waved her hand. A hidden path of glowing flowers appeared through the forest. Prince Adrian and Lyra followed the magical trail together. As they walked, the prince found himself enchanted not merely by Lyra's beauty, but by her gentle spirit. She spoke kindly to every creature they passed and worried more about the sick king than herself. For the first time in years, Prince Adrian felt peace. Selene was secretly following them. At last, they reached a hidden lake glowing beneath the moonlight. In its center bloomed the silver blossom. But before Lyra could step forward, Selene suddenly rushed from the shadows.
I found it first!
She shouted greedily and grabbed the flower roughly. Instantly, the blossom turned black and crumbled into ashes. The lake darkened. Cold wind swept across the forest.
No! What happened?
Selene shouted and stared in horror. The fairy queen appeared once more, her silver eyes stern.
Magic born from purity cannot survive selfishness.
Selene trembled with shame. Then softly, Lyra stepped forward and said gently,
"Please, give her another chance."
Even after all her sister's cruelty, Lyra still chose kindness. The fairy queen's expression softened.
To forgive those who wrong you is the rarest magic of all.
With a wave of her hand, another silver blossom across the center of the moonlit lake. This time, Lyra carefully picked the flower with gratitude. She carried the silver blossom to the prince. Soon the king was healed. Joy returned to the kingdom. The dying king had regained his strength, and with him, the prosperity of the realm returned. In the palace gardens, months passed, and the silence of the woods gave way to the ringing of bells that echoed across the valley. As for Prince Adrian, his heart belonged completely to Lyra, not because she was the most beautiful maiden in the land, but because she possessed something far rarer, a beautiful soul. This was no longer the world of mud and shadows. It was a life defined by duty and the quiet weight of the crown. As they reached the center of the garden, the prince turned to face her, the garden falling into a sudden, expectant hush. The ceremony began, binding their lives together in the sight of the kingdom. The wedding festivities dissolved into the soft amber glow of dusk. Guests drifted away. As for Selene, she slowly learned that beauty without kindness fades like winter roses, leaving the garden paths littered with fallen petals. At the edge of the stone terrace, Selene stood alone, her fingers tracing the sharp, cold edges of a heavy jewelry case. She shifted the box, the metal clicking as she prepared to tuck it into the shadows of a nearby alcove. A sudden, sharp thud against the garden wall cut through the silence. She turned. A small, feathered bird lay on the packed earth, its wing twisted at an unnatural angle. Selene hesitated, her hand still resting on the lid of her case. She looked toward the royal altar, then back to the creature. She let the case slide from her grip, leaving it discarded in the grass. She knelt, her knees pressing into the cool soil, and reached out. Her fingers moved with practiced, gentle precision, cupping the bird's chest to steady its frantic heartbeat. She did not reach for a mirror or a silver tray. Instead, she smoothed the creature's ruffled feathers and stood, shielding it from the cooling night wind. As she walked toward the wooded edge of the estate, the forest seemed to lean in, the leaves rustling in a rhythmic, welcoming hum. She had found a different kind of treasure, one that breathed and relied on her touch. She slowly learned that beauty without kindness fades like winter roses, but a gentle heart becomes more beautiful with every passing year. And deep within Moonveil Woods, the fairies still whispered the story of the kind sister whose goodness bloomed brighter than magic itself.